I'm Aporva Baxi, I'm co-founder at DixonBaxi.
And I'm Simon Dixon, also co-founder of DixonBaxi. Aporva and I met about 24 years ago, so I opened a studio in London in the mid-90s, and Aporva was the first person that I interviewed. He was a friend of a friend, and he came to the studio. It's very, very small. Northern team had come down to kind of make their name in the big city. And I met Aporva, and he and I talked for about 2 or 3 hours, and it wasn't an interview, it was really just a chat. And we chatted about film, we chatted about life, we chatted about design and lots of different things. Didn't even look at his work. And the next day I just thought, there's something about this guy. So we worked together, and then over a number of years we worked in the same studio. We opened studios alongside each other and built a kind of creative relationship, which is the foundation of DixonBaxi.
But what was really brilliant is that we almost saw each other as inspiration to each other, I would say, and that was really fascinating. Competition. I think there was a healthy dose of that, so Si would do something and it'd be like, that's really amazing, but also really annoying, because it would be something to aspire to and say, well, how did we do that? How did he do that? And I personally would try and find a new way of doing something. So I think that healthy relationship, to be honest, has lasted for 24 years, and we still do that now.
Obviously, we have a lot of commonalities in the way we see the world, otherwise you couldn't work together. But it is a partnership you work at, and I think the reason that we do well is that there is enough difference that we can have an opinion, and that kind of creative sparring or sense of supporting one of the other whilst one of you is kind of down or not getting it, I find that really rewarding. And you might only have a quick conversation about something, but that conversation can change the direction of an idea really quickly. So we like that, I think.
Yeah, I think what's happened over time is that there's a shorthand, in the way that we operate, and you probably find that with anyone that's worked together for that long. So we can kind of work very quickly and at a fairly high level, and just intuitively know that gut instinct is right. And I think the big part of that is just respect for each other and respect for each other's opinion. And to be honest, that's why we started the business, is that we felt that there was a shared point of view, a shared ambition in a lot of things. And that is, as I said before, creativity, but it's also a passion for film, a passion for storytelling, and to be honest, a passion for what's next. How can we kind of continually evolve and change? And I think that's actually one of the things that binds us, is the constant need for doing something new.
When there's two of you, it gives you confidence to make decisions. Yeah. So a lot of the time you're defined by the things you don't do as much as the things you choose to do. So if we choose not to do a project, or we want to try something new or take a risk, there's something really great about having a quick conversation and saying, it's okay not to do that. It's okay to try that and maybe fail, maybe try something that won't work. And we've had as many mistakes as we've had successes over the year, but I think that makes us, more restless to change and get better at what we do. So we try and define ourselves by being better every day based on where we were yesterday.
We talked about being restless, about improving things. It's really that thought that any aspects of anything that we do, from a simple detail, a simple interaction, can be changed for the better. And so it's a really nice thought, and I think what it also does is that it allows for a freedom and an openness when we're talking about work. So if we're using this glass wall here, which we often do to sprint work, we tend to work really quickly. So we're looking at work on a daily basis. We have this thing where we all meet at around 4 o'clock, or the teams meet. And there's enough time in the day to get somewhere, but there's still time in the day to continue that story. But as we look at work, the agility of that and the idea of changing things for the better means that there's an openness to how we appreciate work, talk about work, move work through the studio, or take work from one team and give it to another for a different point of view.
But we don't lose the focus that we're trying to achieve something creatively that's excellent, so it does require hours. But then, you know, if somebody needs something or needs time off, or they've got a particular thing they need to do, then that's cool with us. We try and manage that expectancy. The little details like the kerning and the leading are just as important as the kind of big ideas, so the macro to the micro. There's lots of things that are about the kind of craft and beauty of what design does, which we really care about. But underneath that, we care about ideas that drive that, strategies and creative ideas that can change things.
The other great thing is that we have people from all over the world, and that adds a real energy. You get what you get is just different points of view, but also the one thing we've tried to do is just find really great people that are full of integrity and have a genuine quality. So it's really important that for a team culture, you know, we see everything in a collective way, so we share work and all of that good stuff. But what's really exciting is when you see people moving up around the studio. They're not kind of just entirely plugged in to their Macs and so on.
If you've worked for 25 years in an industry and you want to be valid and feel like you're achieving and learning and growing, you better be restless, because otherwise you'll plateau, and as soon as you plateau you're going to drop. So it's about creative self-fulfillment. It's about learning and engaging with the world and doing new things and pushing the envelope of our industry, because why be in it otherwise? It doesn't make any sense. So it's just part of our operating system.
Yeah, and I think touching on that, the restlessness is really not simply about flitting from one thing to another, but it's really learning and creating what's next, trying to find the next thing. And that isn't simply just boiled down to innovation or so on, but the idea of learning new things, learning from our team, finding a new way to say stuff. And the interesting thing about that is that because the world sees everything instantly, everyone sees everything. So there's a real danger, it's happening. There's a homogenization of things. You see massive kind of sweeping trends that happen overnight, and then they peak and trough and so on. And so, you've got to ferry your way through that. And we kind of rail against the kind of that side of things. And I guess our restlessness is, well, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way of finding something original, re-editing those cultural references that everyone sees, and kind of realigning them.
The other thing about it is, to be really good at what you do, you've got to keep pushing. So some of what we're talking about is the difference between good and great. And I'm not saying we're great as an agency, I'm just saying we strive to be great at what we do. Other people can judge whether or not we're any good at what we do. It doesn't really matter, because we're happy at what we're doing. But it's very easy to make things look pretty good now. It's very easy to get people to like things very quickly. But when you look really closely and underneath, they haven't pushed far enough to make it original or different or really have some merit, or to do something new in a challenging environment. And to be honest with you, a lot of what we do is quite challenging, the space we operate in, because of the scale of what we do. So to kind of push something that far, you have to keep pushing. You can't settle, basically. Otherwise your work rounds off, and it doesn't have the kind of power that is required to do excellent work. So some of that restlessness is that process of getting between good and great, and we don't want to be at good, because that'll kill you.